Hey everybody, this is Tyler with Cutthroat Research again. Finally getting you guys some gameplay videos. On the screen right now is the deck list that we're playing. I'm playing in the purple sleeves. My deck's Beast Pack, Spawn of Sunmaw, and my opponent is playing in the colored, the picture sleeves, and his deck's name is Sir Quilveo Rossi. If you want to pause the video and take a look at the deck lists, they're here. Their decks of Keyforge little stat lines are there in the middle. You could take a look at all that, look through the decks. I love the deck that I'm playing, and I know my opponent really likes his. His deck has triple control of the week with double Nepenthe Seed, and if he can get that off, it's just, that part's brutal. It's got a lot of other great little interactions in there. The deck that I'm playing has the Sting, Speed Sigil, and it's a Time Traveler deck with Key Charge. It's got a lot of things I really like. A lot of very toolboxy feels. So in this game, rather than just talk about just what's going on in the game, I'd like to kind of talk about what you should think about while you're playing decks. Like, you should look at your deck list and try to see what questions your deck is going to be asking and what questions your deck can answer. But more importantly, you should know what things your deck can't answer. So like right here, I opened with a Nepenthe Seed, and he immediately drops Tentacus. Tentacus kind of hurts a lot of the deck plays I like to make with this deck by forcing me to pay him to use any of my artifacts. This deck that I'm playing, Beast Pack, has a lot of tempo shifts. It has a lot of Amber swings into from him to you. It has triple Relentless Whispers, which is fantastic. It has a bait and switch, which even post nerf I think is still great. I have a Nepenthe Seed myself. The Sting, I love decks with the Sting. I love decks with Speed Sigil. The Sting is a very difficult card to play perfectly. Ideally, you want to forge your key first before playing the Sting. Forge one key before they do. Play the Sting. Then you play it when they're in check, so they can't really play around it. You get their 6 Amber, and then hopefully in the next turn or two, you can drop the Sting and just get that immediate benefit as quickly as possible with less of the downside. The upside of this deck, Beast Pact, is I also have a Neutron Shark in here, and a lot of times I find myself playing the Sting, and then when the Sting has gotten me some Amber, I'll drop it with Neutron Shark so that I can off-house get rid of it. So I get rid of it in 2 houses. 3, actually, if they have like Poltergeist or Remote Access in their discard, and I have a Mimicry in hand. But the big thing is the Sting can be such a huge tempo shift. And I know people don't really use the term tempo a lot in Keyforge, but Beast Pact, the deck I'm piloting here, I do consider a tempo deck. I try to control the ebb and flow of gameplay when I'm playing it. I try to make my opponent respond to my plays rather than make any of their own. It's not always that easy, especially when you're playing Chained. This is a deck that I've gotten now to 15 chains as of the day of recording, and it's at a point where you're opening with 3 or 4 cards, and you're only going to have 3 or 4 cards for the first few turns of the game, and it can be quite brutal. Luckily, like I was saying earlier, this deck does have a lot of big tempo shifts in single cards. Relentless Whispers, Bait and Switch. The Sting's huge even if you're playing from behind, even if you're playing with less cards. Just that 6 Amber swing, it's at the cost of letting them get a key. The first 2 keys, like honestly, my general plan of attack with any deck, especially decks like this that are somewhat rushy, somewhat tempo based, my general plan is get the first key. Get the key before them, because then you can spend your second key, your second phase of the game, key number 2, just keeping them off their first key while incrementally gaining Amber or building your board. Well, creating more questions than answers. And then if you kept them off the key, if you made them take longer to get their first key, by that time, hopefully you've made your second key, and then you want to just explode to key 3. That's what I find I try to do, but as always, you have to play your opponent. You have to play the cards you're given. Ideally, you're not always going to be in the best situation. You might have to adapt, and that's the biggest thing, is learning to adapt. Knowing what you want to do, knowing what you should do, but being able to change that based on what actually happens. Especially in Keyforge, if you're playing best of 1, there's high rolls, there's low rolls. And the most important thing is knowing what your deck should do and playing to that. You play to your outs. So this game has been a lot of tempo back and forth. Nobody's forged a key yet. So we're both still at 0 keys. We're building our boards. I have the sting out, and I dropped it rather early. See, this is the situation that makes me feel like sometimes I play the sting wrong. When I have the sting out, I don't have a key yet, and neither do they. I would be able to forge a key had I not have the sting out, and it feels bad. But at the same time, sometimes, especially with chains, playing with chains is a whole different story, because you need to get through your deck. Because if your opponent rushes, you're going to fall behind. So here, all those tempo shift cards come in handy again. I went shadows, I got rid of the sting, and we are building amber. I think I got rid of the sting without even getting benefit from it, which is weird, but again, that comes to adapting. I saw that I'm now in the amber position where I'm not just going to build a huge pool of amber. I got the amber for playing the sting. Just get rid of it. I'm ahead. Because I'm trying to rush this game, because that's the hand I was dealt. Even though I don't consider this deck quite a rush deck, if that's what you're playing to the game you're playing, make sure you stick with that plan as much as you can. So I have this huge tempo advantage. It looks like I have about 12 amber. He controls the weak. So in this last play, I chose shadows just to get rid of the sting. And the reason I did this, I remember, I have a Speed Sigil and a Smiling Ruth in hand, and I want to play those next turn. I wanted to go shadows. And I know his deck has triple control of the weak, and he just control the weak me into shadows. So here, he thinks since I played shadows that's, maybe I drew 1 or 2 more shadows cards, but what are the chances? I only played 2 shadows cards. So he calls shadows, he drops shaffles, I lose an amber, and that was his safe play. And it was the right play to do. Absolutely, I think that I would have done the same in his situation. But here, because I was saving for this cute play that I like to do, the Speed Sigil Smiling Ruth, I reap onto a second key, and I take his shaffles, and right there, that tempo shift is just enough for him to call the game. So that was some practice. We have Store Championships coming up. We're going to be playing Unchained, and these are decks that we've had chained up pretty much since we started playing Keyforge. As you can see here, my deck, I've played 34 games in tournament with it, 21-13. It's not the best win-loss ratio, but like I said, I'm doing a lot of grinding. It's been at the 10 to 14 chain mark for a while. I'm starting to make some headway getting up there to my goal of getting to power level 4 with chains. His win-loss is amazing, 14-6, and I know that's just recently off some bad beats at the last Chainbound we went to. It was 14-3, I believe, before our previous tournament we went to, which is phenomenal. Like, his deck, these are both great decks. I really like Beast Pact, the deck that I'm piloting. It's probably my favorite deck. It was one of the first couple decks that I bought, and I kind of put it to the side and didn't think much of it because I wasn't familiar enough with the game yet. But I mean, if you just want to take a look at these decks, it's got so much stuff I really like. Speed Sigil, I love Speed Sigil decks. You have to know, though, when your opponent can take more advantage of it than you. The deck has a low creature count, so sometimes Speed Sigil isn't the best against people who have high creature counts or creatures that have very impactful reap effects. That is the thing I do like about this deck is a lot of the creatures it has have these very strong reap effects or actions as soon as they come down. Like you have last night I had a Chainbound event. I had Time Traveler and Help from Future Self in hand, which normally is just you never want to see that because they're kind of anti-synergistic. It's clunky, but when you have them both in hand and Speed Sigil, it lets you play the Time Traveler to draw 2, gain your Amber, and then immediately shuffle them back in to search out with Help from Future Self, gain another Amber, play him again, gain a third Amber, and draw another 2 cards. That's a huge positive from something that would normally be a slight negative. Having Speed Sigil with Witch of the Eye, the game. I tried to record some gameplays at locals at our last week's Chainbound event, and I overlooked my camera's SD card size. It just wasn't big enough to record a full game, and it felt bad. The first game I played too was phenomenal. I played this deck. It had 12 chains at the time, or 13, and my opponent was ahead 2 keys to my 0 because I got Sting out early, and I was just sitting on all this Amber. I was trying to get rid of the Sting, and when I finally did, I made a key. It went to him. He key hammered me, and he got to something silly like 10 or 12 Amber for his third key, and he felt great. He's like, man, I key hammered him. Things are good. And it passed to me. I forge a key again, so I'm at 1 key. It's my turn. I have Speed Sigil out, and I have a Witch of the Eye and a key charge in my hand. So I play the key charge with all my Amber left over from the Sting, go to 2 keys, play Witch of the Eye ready, reap, get back key charge, reap with 1 or 2 other untamed creatures, and I went 0 to 3 keys that turn. And man, I really wish I recorded that gameplay. Just like it was I don't know if it was necessarily a high roll, but it was just a culmination of a lot of things that worked in my favor that game, and it just really shows the power of Speed Sigil with these creatures like Witch of the Eye and not Shadow Self, I'm sorry, Naughty the Thief, Time Traveler. Even to an extent, creatures like the Assault Bear, the Ancient Bear, being able to attack the turn it comes in, or a Niffleape with Niffle Queen or Halicore. Like these, there's not a ton of creatures in this deck, but the creatures it has really do benefit off of being able to act the turn they come in on for at least a single creature. The Sting, I love playing with the Sting. It's a very skill testing card, and it feels good every time I play it. I either learn what does or doesn't work with it. Playing through 30 games in tournament with this deck, it's my baby. I want it to work. I want it to get high. I don't know if this would be necessarily what I would bring to an Archon event, because I do have some other decks that are just as powerful, but if I was going to a Triad, this would definitely be one of them. No questions asked. It might even be the first. I'm just very familiar with it at this point. My opponent's deck, his is... Geez, it's amazing. It's got the answers you want. This is... When you look on the left here, Beast Pact, it is a deck that, like I said, it has a couple questions it asks, has a couple questions it answers, but man, Sir Quilveo, it answers questions. It just does. It's a very controlling deck, and it has the ability to just, man, with a fair game, you see their hand, you control the weak, and you could get them 5 turns just where they can't play cards if you do it right. Double Poison Wave, double Dodger, double Silvertooth. These are both great decks, and I'm going to have more gameplay of Beast Pact for sure as I take this trek to try to get to more chains. So this is just a quick little video trying to explain some of my thought process on that. I will be definitely trying to get more gameplay videos. If this is a format you like, or if you'd like to see it done a different way, please let me know. And yeah, Cutthroat Research. We're going to have another podcast coming every Saturday as long as nothing gets in the way. So like, comment, subscribe, keep on forging them keys.